Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. This is a VR to Roaen Here, and I will link the original video below, but the tag is called Aspirational Tarot, and it's a 5-question tag. I'll also list the questions and timestamp. This tag caught my attention because there's one question in particular out of the 5 that I think is a really interesting question, and is also a question that I find myself thinking about fairly often, but don't think I've talked about too much, at least not in a really direct way. So it's really because of the one question that this tag appealed to me and caught my attention as something I would like to VR to, but I'll go, of course, and answer all 5. So the first question is, what is your ideal number of decks? I don't have an ideal number of decks. If I was to describe my ideal tarot collection or my ideal deck collection, I would say things like my ideal collection would include a diverse array of art styles. My ideal collection would include decks that feel suited to every season in terms of the seasons where I live. I live in a region where 4 seasons are quite distinct in terms of weather and things like that. I would say that my ideal collection would feature a lot of diversity, a lot of queer-centric decks, a lot of nature-based decks, and, this I think is the only way that I can envision my ideal deck collection. I'm not a very quantitative thinker in kind of any aspect of my life, I don't think, so the idea of my ideal collection being defined by a number feels strange to me, like not something that I could even begin to think about. Question number 2 is, what is your ideal storage situation for your reality? So as I understand it, the intent of this question is not like, would you ideally have a massive house with a, entire wing dedicated to tarot decks or something, but like, what is, based on where you currently live, your ideal storage situation for your decks? How would you keep them? So my current reality is that I live in a house. This is my living room. You usually see me in my home office, and my partner is a carpenter. So when it comes to getting custom shelving built, I do have, a way to do that, though procrastination is a factor. I will say I'm waiting on bookshelves for this room that have been under construction for well over half a year. Other things come up, So custom shelves, that's definitely a thing. I would say that my ideal storage situation is the one that I have now. So I've shown it in other videos. Right now I have in my bedroom a wall-mounted shelf, and it has 3 kind of levels, and then they're connected. And the bottom 2 have all of my tarot decks on them. The top has things like a few framed postcards of art that has come with a couple of decks, like Kickstarter decks. And it also has like an incense burner and a couple of different rocks and different little odds and ends like that. And my oracle decks live on a shoe rack. When I bought it, it was labeled shoe rack. Now it's oracle rack. That's kind of tall and narrow metal, smaller shelf at the top, and then it gets wider towards the bottom. So the bottom has a little box with all my Lenormands in it, which is not very many, and some books. And then the upper shelves have the oracle decks on it, as well as kind of all the divinatory tools that are not decks. So things like dice, Ogam staves, and my playing cards are there, and things like the journey tokens and geomancy coins and those kinds of things as well are all on the top of that oracle shelf. And the reason that I would say that this is my ideal storage situation is because I can have all of my decks in one place. My ideal storage situation is to have shelving such that all of my decks fit in, in the same room, on the same wall, same place. They're not kind of all over the house. They're not needing to be tucked away in, Rubbermaid bins or something. I've got, off camera, I have a Rubbermaid bin because I'm washing and putting away the winter gear right now. I don't want to do that with decks though. So I like the shelving that I have. Now, is there a chance that I may have to remove the things that are currently on the top of the tarot shelf to make room for more decks? Eventually, quite possibly, but I feel pretty happy with the shelves that I have. Question number 3, this is the question that caught my attention, that I think is a really interesting one. How do I want to use tarot versus how am I using tarot now? Why the discrepancy, if one? This question I think is really interesting, and I think that it's a really interesting question because it speaks to a way of thinking about a practice that in some ways I can find very useful, and in others is something that I really want to avoid. That sounds really nebulous. Basically, what I'm getting at is, on the one hand, in terms of thinking about ideal practice or how I would like to engage with tarot in the future, this is definitely something I do. I have here my planner, and I've shared previously that I make New Year's kind of visioning or resolutions every year, and I do have some that are related to tarot practice or related to divination more broadly for 2024. Those include design spreads for holidays, commemorative times, and needs that arise during the year. So like spread design. Study Marseille techniques and read Marseille decks more often. And maintain a flexible rhythm of divinatory practice. So those are my specifically tarot-related goals of 2024. All relatively non-quantifiable, other than maybe the Marseille, says read Marseille more, presumably more than I was at the beginning of the year. All of them also are more of a deepening or a continuation than they are a dramatic change. So I don't think that having a sense of wanting to use tarot perhaps differently than I do at a particular time means that I'm, unhappy with my practice and I fundamentally want to reorient it entirely or anything like that. But there's kind of aspirational quality, right? And when I said that this question, kind of set of questions, is a kind of thinking or points to a kind of thinking that I can get stuck in, that I try to stay out of. This is where I think sometimes in kind of conversational spheres, communities, however we want to talk about that place a lot of emphasis on things like personal development, whatever we want to understand that as. I think that there can be sometimes a pattern of internalizing the idea that whatever you're doing needs to be improved all the time, right? You need to kind of be perpetually scrutinizing yourself in some kind of way in order to develop, into something better than you already are, right? Or develop your practice into something better than it is already. And I'm a fan of resolutions. I'm a fan of visioning. I'm also wary of this in a certain way, in the sense that I know that sometimes this kind of thinking for me personally can turn into a kind of self-scrutinizing that is really not helpful. Like I don't want to be in a place where I think of my tarot practice as a thing that I really wish was better than it was, or that I'm, doing for now because I'm not doing something better yet. Like that doesn't feel self-loving, but it also just doesn't feel productive or accurate. So there's There's a ramble. How do I want to use tarot? How am I using tarot now? Why the discrepancy? If there's discrepancies here for me that are quantifiable, I would say that it's just a frequency, in the sense that I wish I was using tarot more. I would like to work with tarot more often. I work 45 hours a week, sometimes more. I have a 40-hour-a-week day job plus a second job that is kind of is flexible, and the number of hours can vary pretty widely. I am looking forward in a couple of months, 5 months or so, to that second job ending so that I have more time for the things that I love doing when I'm not at work. Right? So that's something I want to use tarot more. So why the discrepancy? I work too much. I work too much and I have too many things that I want to do. There's a discrepancy reason. Since coming back from Reader Studio, also feel like I want to read for other people more than I do. I mostly read for myself. Sometimes I read for friends or family members, but mostly I'm reading for myself. Like the percentage of readings that I do that are for myself is a significant percentage, like definitely way over 50%, over 75%. I would like to read for other people more. Why the discrepancy there? Some of it comes down to a time thing. Some of it comes down to I don't have a ton of folks in my offline life who are tarot enthusiasts, and I also don't want to get into doing a whole bunch of Zoom-based readings because I'm on the computer so much for work. So there's kind of externalities that affect my practice, I would say, that keep me from maybe doing as much of particular things as I would like to be. So that's a ramble. Knew that you would get a ramble from me on this kind of a question. Other than that, I think in terms of how I would like to use the tarot versus how I'm using it now, I would like to always be learning. I would like to always be exploring new techniques. I would always like to be, maybe taking tarot classes or having discussion groups or like a study group or something like that. I think things like that are really amazing. And so I don't think that's a discrepancy between how I would like to be using tarot versus how I am using tarot, but I hope that, future me's tarot practice includes more skills and more wisdom and more insights and more spreads and more, of all of these things that you learn along the way. The fourth question is, what tarot decks would I have, ideally, that I currently don't? In terms of, I guess, kind of an ideal collection. I don't have a huge wish list. And I read this question, and I don't know that this was the intention, but I read this question as like a quite intense question. Like, what decks, do you feel like are missing from your collection? Which to me feels like a really, that's to me a level of intensity that is different than just kind of what's on your wish list. What are some decks you'd like to kind of try out, right? Like, what is something you would really love to have in your collection? And so I can only go kind of out of print here and say that the Collective Tarot and the Delta Enduring Tarot are two decks that I don't anticipate ever having in my collection unless there's a reprint, but that are pieces of queer tarot history and queer tarot culture, that I think are important and that I would love to have in my collection if they're reprinted. That there would be no thought, if there was a reprint of the Collective Tarot or the Delta Enduring, I would be on it right away. Like, backer number one. I will be on it. I probably wouldn't be backer number one because I don't use social media and there's no way that I would find out fast enough to be backer number one. But I would be in there with enthusiasm for either of those decks for sure. And the tarot deck that I plan to add to my collection next as of now is the Magical Nature Tarot, which is just a beautiful deck that does so many things that I love. There's a lot of kind of eco-conscious decision making in its production, and there's diversity to it, and I think that it's really beautiful. So that's going to be what I add to my collection next. And then the last question is, what oracle decks would I have in my collection that I currently don't? I have a few that I'm looking at for sure on the kind of to explore list, but I wouldn't say that there's any oracle decks that I can say right now that I absolutely will be adding to my collection, or that I feel like I really missed out on. There just aren't. My oracle collection is smaller than my tarot collection. I feel like have maybe a 2023 where my oracle deck collection grew like faster than my tarot collection. And so I feel kind of not saturated, but I feel like I have a good range of different kinds of oracle decks and different kind of niches that I feel really happy with. I know that I would like to spend time learning playing cards, so I would like to get Auntie Kay's Back Pocket Oracle playing cards, and when they're done, Charlie Claire Burgess's playing card oracle that's on their website. That's like very much in progress. It's not anything close to being published now. Those are definitely decks that I have my eye on, but there's nothing kind of out of print that stands out in my mind in terms of oracle decks that I really feel like I wish that I could add to my collection. So that is Aspirational Tarot by Roaen Here. Again, I'll link below. Go check out Roaen's channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video, and do let me know if there are particular ways that you want to use the tarot that you're not using the tarot, or that you're not using the tarot yet, and why that is, because I think that third question is really interesting, and I've been enjoying seeing what others have to say about it. So share your comments if you would like, and I'll see you soon.